Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage President and CEO, David DeStefano.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the amazing Gaylord Resort Vertex Exchange 2019. In case anybody out there is wondering, we did arrange for the snowfall just so we can make sure you would stay in sessions and not enjoy the beautiful sunshine. So that was prearranged, but we did add snow angel making at 2 o'clock and snow fort making at 4 o'clock in case you need new sessions. So no, I love Exchange. Exchange is an incredible opportunity for the Vertex team to share a lot of the enthusiasm that we try to bring to work each and every day with all of you. It's also an incredible opportunity for us to gain insights from you about what we need to do to get better, and perhaps most importantly, for us to create an environment where you can share best practices and network with your peers. And I can assure you this year, with record attendance, there is no shortage of opportunities to learn and to network. It's also a great opportunity for us to celebrate a little bit about the innovations that you bring forward to your organizations to serve your customers. And this year, we're going to showcase our Innovation Award winners throughout the program. Kind of think of it like Oscars night, where we'll preview all the Innovation Award winners, and then ultimately you'll vote for the winner, and we'll talk about that later. But ultimately, what I love about Exchange is it's a reflection of our mission. Because our mission for the last 35, 40 years has been all about trust, partnership, connections, great people. And that's really what Exchange is all about. And speaking of partners and people, I'd be remiss if I didn't honor our sponsors. Without these wonderful corporations, we wouldn't be able to put on this kind of an event. So we thank you greatly for not only sponsoring this event, but also for your partnership throughout the year. We're truly honored to work with you. All right, so let's jump in. We're all feeling that incredible impact about regulatory change, business model changes, technology changes. We've taken that to heart, and our goal this week, and ultimately always at Vertex, is about how do we accelerate your time to value, and how do we improve that customer experience so that you can keep pace with the change that's coming at you. And that's what this week's all about. We're going to start with regulatory change because that's sort of the constant in our organization, and it drives much of what we do to deliver value to you. I'm going to introduce Mike Bernard up on stage. See, Mike he's our Chief Transaction Tax Officer, and what Mike's brought to the organization when we created our transaction tax office was really about how do we bring the voice of tax into Vertex to make sure we really understand the regulatory environment. So without further ado, Mike Bernard, please come join me on stage.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks a lot, David. Good morning.
So there's been a lot of change around Wayfair in the last 18 months. Let's start there for the audience.
Sure. So let's just jump into it. Happy to be here too. First of all, as you know, those states that have sales and use tax regimes have mostly all of them enacted economic thresholds. And what you'll see in some of those regimes is that the states have used a combination of things, both transaction testing and economic value testing, or really dollar amounts. And what I think you're going to see now is there's some states that are actually trying to pull back from the transaction testing regime. And the reason they are is because sometimes transaction testing can actually lead to low economic activity. And if you think about it, the thresholds are there. They serve as a proxy for who has to file returns, but mostly they're there from a legal standard actually to say who doesn't have to file. So it's really a litigation risk to the customers. So you're going to see some movement in that direction.
Who would challenge those thresholds, Mike?
Well, it would mainly be small sellers supported by their trade groups.
Okay.
And one other thing, too, I want to just mention really quickly about Wayfair is in the adjudication area of the case itself. So as you all remember, the sole issue in Wayfair was whether the physical presence test should be abrogated. That was the only issue. And so what happened was the economic threshold test was actually sent back to the court. That's never been adjudicated, so that lends itself to actually that kind of lawsuit. Yeah.
Makes sense.
In addition to that, during 2019, I think most of you saw a great deal of states also enacting marketplace facilitator laws. Those laws actually put the burden basically on the facilitator to collect, remit, and defend. States will be adjusting these laws in 2020, as some of them weren't always congruent.
All right, so pretty significant movement around Wayfair.
Right.
States have provided some clarity, but little uniformity is what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Basically situation normal, right, folks?
Yeah, he's right.
What about the marketplace laws? I know there's some unique things going on there. What are you monitoring?
So I think what's going to happen in 2020 is that there's going to be a few adjustments. And as most of you know, or probably been following, the Multi-State Tax Commission and the National Conference of State Legislators kind of act as advisors to these states. The MTC actually works on the policy side, and the NCSL actually works on the drafting side. So what you're going to see is those organizations have had discussions over the past, say, few months, and now actually they're going to produce a white paper next month, and a lot of states are going to use that white paper to actually tune up and amend their laws. I think the bottom line on all of this is that the key thing that we want to try and get from all of this activity is that there's uniform definitions and then more clarity around the tax rules. I'd like to also touch on just a few other things briefly.
Please.
First thing I want to talk about is foreign inbound sellers. They got caught up in the Wayfair action as well. So one thing I think that we've seen that states are starting to do is they want to make sure that non-compliant foreign inbound sellers don't have a cost, really kind of a sales tax cost advantage to other sellers in the US who are actually competing with them. So some of that enforcement is probably going to come through the US banking laws because those transactions are cleared through US banks. And then lastly, I want to touch on one other thing is that Wayfair has gone global. As some of you may know, is that the Australians actually put in Wayfair type legislation. I had the opportunity to talk to the Australian tax office this summer. Actually, they called me, so somehow they found me. But anyway, I had a chance to talk to them. And one thing that they just want to make sure is that remote sellers from the US, when they sell into Australia, that the proper amount of VAT is collected and remitted. So I don't think Australia normally tends to be a very cutting edge type of country when they think of those things. So I expect more in that area as well.
So Mike, if you were to open your crystal ball and look at where you think Wayfair next shoe will drop, what would you look for? What should the audience be aware of?
I think everybody in this room probably would be affected by this. But I think what you're going to see is more taxation on professional services. So in that area, what I'm really talking about is I'm talking about services that are actually generated in another state or even in a foreign country and then utilized here in the US in yet another jurisdiction. So what that really means is, and I think a number of you know this, is that the sourcing laws allow for the taxation generally to be in place where it's utilized. So we are all consumers of those types of services, and we may even produce some of those services, so that's not going to affect us. An example of some of those services would be such things as IT, engineering, accounting, legal, advertising, maybe even product design. So something to be aware of.
All right, so we got a lot of clarity. Not as much uniformity as we'd like. If we think about Europe, what's going to happen over in Europe? Because many of the folks in the audience here are responsible for Europe compliance as well. How's the pace of change there?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple things we're going to mention there. So I know Brexit has been top of mind for many of you. A lot of you have said that you want to be compliant day one when Brexit happens. Some of you probably saw the reports either last night or this morning that now Brexit has been delayed until January 31st, 2020. There's even a provision there that could delay it even until the middle of the summer, so another 6 months. So we're kind of in this rotation of just getting used to delay and delay. But whatever happens, no matter what happens in there, I think we'll be prepared and ready. We will be prepared and ready to actually deal with the new compliance standards. And then finally, I'd like to talk about real-time reporting. As many of you know, real-time reporting is when transactions are reported normally right after a transaction happens. So it could be near or real time. And that's taken hold a little bit in Europe, not so much in the US, because I don't think the US system actually lends itself to that. And I think from a policy standpoint, it really shouldn't be, it really has no purpose here in the US. But I think the thing about real-time reporting is that places a premium on your accuracy of your data. I'd like everybody to consider this, if you haven't already, is that real-time reporting, if we're going to have that, shouldn't there be real-time auditing? In other words, why can't it be a two-way street? And maybe that's a discussion that we should probably have with some of the governments as we progress along this path.
That's something we could all take forward and carry. Okay, so no shortage of change in Europe. A lot going on. I know we could highlight the rest of the world, but we're going to keep this moving this morning, Mike, so thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, David.
And I think really the takeaway we want you to have from that short introduction around what's going on in the highlights and tax is really about whether, from a regulatory perspective, wherever there's change, wherever you want to do business around the world, our job is to make sure we've got the solutions and the software available to support you so you can continue to grow your business. So if the pace of regulatory change isn't slowing down, our opportunity and our obligation to you is really about how do we deliver value faster? How do we support this change? How do we improve your customer experience? And that starts by meeting you where you're at and dealing with the changes that you're having to address. I'm going to invite Chris Jones on stage. Chris is our Vice President of Global Sales, and he's going to share a little bit about the value we've delivered over the past year. So please welcome Chris Jones. Oh, the Eagles song. Way to go, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thought we'd bring a little bit of Philadelphia to Denver with the Eagles chant, so there to start things off. Thrilled to be here today. Before we talk about what we've delivered, I'd like to connect to David's comments around supporting our customers however they do business and introduce our first Innovation Award winner. They were faced with having to calculate tax real time in the field where their employees were processing transactions. Let's hear about how Coke One North America created mobile field sales enablement for Coca-Cola.
Coke One North America. Kona provides an IT platform that delivers integrated tools, data standards, and processes to participating local Coca-Cola bottlers in North America. Through the use of innovative point-of-sale models, the Kona team leveraged the Vertex retail solution and tax content to create a new mobile field service enablement solution for 11,000 Coca-Cola drivers. Kona saved an estimated $15 million because they were able to update the system without replacing the existing handheld devices.
Congratulations to Coke One. Chris, let's jump into some specifics that'll cover the rest of the sessions here this week about where we've delivered value for our customers.
Sure, I'd love to. We've received positive feedback from you, our customers, and our partners related to O-Series 9.0. And specifically, we're receiving exceptional feedback on the user experience of the product. You're telling us that you're able to train your users faster, and you're able to complete tasks in a much more efficient way than you did prior, all supporting faster time to value.
Perfect.
In addition, this user interface will now be used moving forward on Vertex applications. So if you're using multiple products from Vertex, you'll share that same user experience across all offerings.
All right. Mike talked a lot about regulatory pressure. How does 9.0 start to address some of those regulatory challenges?
Sure. On the regulatory front, communication tax seems to be front and center right now. For years, Vertex has supported the largest telecom providers and their complex telecommunication tax needs, but we're now seeing traditional non-telecom companies have similar challenges. Think about streaming services. If you're providing voice over IP, video services, webcasting type services, you may now be subject to telecommunication tax. The good news is in O-Series 9.0, we've added over 2 million rules specific to communication tax. So if you fall into this category, by using 9.0, you can now calculate sales tax, use tax, value-added tax, and your communication tax all in one platform.
Perfect. How about tax jurisdictions? I know Mike is a little bit sensitive to what's going on with the where tax jurisdiction identification is going. Speak about that.
Yeah, tax jurisdictions, as we all know, is the core of getting taxes correct, right? If you can't locate the jurisdiction, you cannot use the proper rates, rules, taxability, and ultimately calculate the right tax. and it's becoming increasingly difficult as business models change. A number of our construction customers will build projects in areas that do not have a physical location assigned yet or do not have a street address. But you also have newer business models where this is a challenge. We joked this morning, I wanted to come in here this morning on a Lime scooter. We thought that would be a nice touch to add a little energy, but the weather didn't cooperate. But being serious, mobile rentals like scooters and bicycles create a real challenge for identification location. You can pick the article up at any location, you can drive, drop off at another location, and there may not be a street address. To address this, we've added latitude, longitude to O-Series. You simply pass the coordinates into the system, and we can pinpoint the tax jurisdiction.
That's great. A lot of new capabilities added. When I think about the challenges our customers are facing, I often hear a lot of feedback around, things are happening outside of ERP now. It's happening in my e-commerce system. Transactions are being, taxes being calculated in my procurement system. How does 9.0 support that new business model change?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of activity in the areas of e-commerce and procurement. I'll take some time to speak to procurement specifically right now. We all know that consumer use tax as part of the procurement process can create significant liability and even significant overpayments at times. And you have been investing in procurement over the last few years. We're seeing you invest in procurement-specific systems that work complementary to your ERP systems, and Vertex has followed that suit, and our focus has been on improving the areas of consumer use tax with improved taxability, expanded partnerships with these procurement system providers, and then building connectors between O-Series and the procurement systems. As a matter of fact, our next Innovation Award winner, MetLife, did exactly that. Let's see how MetLife automated the procurement process.
MetLife. MetLife worked with Vertex and PwC to integrate Vertex O-Series with PeopleSoft to automate indirect tax decisions on both sales and purchase transactions. They also added user-friendly decision trees on SAP's Ariba front-end interface, allowing the tax team to track purchase data, gauge the tax impact of their decisions, and improve tax management for purchases. By having a single source for indirect tax data, MetLife now controls their entire tax lifecycle and has accumulated significant time, cost, and resource savings.
Congratulations to MetLife. Great overview of some of the changes in O-Series that the audience will find out about this week. But we also have a lot of folks here who are either on our Q-Series, our L-Series, or our Cloud offerings. Let's talk a little bit about Q and L first.
Sure. For Q and L series, we have been investing in the products. Specifically in the areas of Wayfair, we've expanded support for various Wayfair transactions. We've increased detail to the district level, and we've really focused on improving the user experience by putting a new user interface on both Q and L series. Specific to Q series for our SAP customers, if you're using Q series along with SAP, you can now benefit from a new enhanced connector and the capabilities associated with that. The bottom line is we've been listening to you, you've been heard, we've improved those products, and we'll continue to do so moving forward.
All right, so if we shift to cloud, obviously we've made a commitment to all of you that whether you're doing business on-premise, you need a solution that's on demand, or they need it in the cloud. Our goal is to meet their needs wherever they are. Let's talk about these different environments for a minute and how we're supporting being cloud first in our thinking going forward, and that balance between supporting on-premise customers and being cloud first moving forward.
Sure. So first off, as I talked about with Q and L series, we will continue to improve the Q and L series and our existing products for you, our customers. But moving forward, all of our new solutions will be built on the cloud. And we do this for a number of reasons. By building on the cloud, we can bring products to market faster. We can bring products to market that are easier to implement. And we can bring functionality forward in chunks or in kind of take an iterative approach where we can deliver capabilities, you can start to receive value, and we can then add to that over time, all supporting faster time to value.
Yeah, I think that's a direct reflection of feedback you've given us where the staging to make an upgrade is much longer these days because of IT and everything else. By through the cloud first, they really can just, once they can adopt it iteratively. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does. And a great example of this is our new offering that we call Data Integrity. Data Integrity is designed to improve the accuracy of your data as part of the compliance process, and it's designed ultimately to reduce your audit exposure and improve your operational efficiency. This product will be available in Q1 of 2020, and we're currently working with early adopter clients. But it's important to note, along the lines of this cloud development, that data integrity is just the first piece of a suite of offerings that make up a data management solution. And this comes back to the cloud approach. We can bring data integrity to market quickly, you can start to receive value from it, and we can then expand upon it over time to meet the wider need around data management.
But an on-premise customer can benefit from the new data integrity cloud offering, correct?
They can. So the beauty of cloud is if you're on-premise today and you'd like to use cloud, back to the procurement and e-commerce discussion, many companies are implementing e-commerce and procurement systems in the cloud, but they're using O-Series on-premise with their ERP system. By taking this approach, you can mix and match. You could be cloud and cloud, you could be on-premise cloud, any combination will work.
That's great. So if we're going to improve time to value, there's another whole piece of this, which is the whole product experience, which is really about how do we get them using the capabilities we're delivering faster. What are we doing there?
Sure. I mean, we've talked about product here, but I think we all know in this room that product is only one piece of the whole solution and getting things right. As I mentioned earlier, we're hearing you implement new e-commerce systems, procurement systems, subscription billing, CRM, and as you expand your footprint with these systems, we're also expanding our partnerships and partnering with all these technology providers. We're also expanding our partnerships with tax advisory firms and tax tech firms. So whether you're using Vertex Consulting or one of our partners, or we're working side by side, our ultimate goal is your improved customer experience and faster time to value, which is the theme of our discussion.
That's great.
Today.
Great.
Along with that, we're going to see our next two Innovation Award winners that use partnerships. First, Siemens partnered with DMA to put a central instance of O-Series in place to support a wide array of ERP instances. And Graybar partnered with LCR Dixon to centralize and transform their entire tax process. Let's hear about Siemens and Graybar.
Siemens Corporation. Siemens completed the massive task of converting 7 on-premise instances of Vertex O-Series, and they did it in less than 6 months. Siemens was able to do this while not intrusively impacting the numerous IT groups supporting 27 instances of SAP ERP systems. Now, all tax functionality is centralized and maintained in a single Vertex O-Series instance. Graybar Electric. As a wholesale distributor, approximately 60% of Graybar's revenue is exempt from sales tax. Graybar leveraged Vertex O-Series to transform and centralize its tax function. This resulted in dramatically improved productivity and cost savings. In the first 6 months of implementation, Graybar reduced man-hours by 54,000 and saved almost $6 million. Graybar's digital transformation of its indirect tax function has created a new business structure to help them deliver excellent customer service.
Congratulations to Siemens and Graybar. And Chris, thank you. Thank you for sharing all that great information this morning.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. All right, so hopefully through the first 2 speakers you've heard this morning, you understand that no matter where you do business or how you're doing business, whether it be in a marketplace, whether it be mobile, whether it be even the Internet of Things, we're building the tax content and the solutions that you're going to need to help your company grow. But solutions are really only a part of what we're accountable for. Your total experience is equally important to Vertex. In fact, I think we've built our brand over the last 40 years by having a differentiated experience with you and a differentiated relationship with you. And this year, we've actually made a decision to invest even more in that. While we're in an ever-automated world, the reality is we think the personal touch is even more important than ever. So we took a look at our organization and we said we need a chief customer officer that sits over customer success, support, and the enablement functions, all to make sure we never lose focus on who our customer is. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Kate Shields up to tell you a little bit about what she's doing and how she's delivering value and improving your experience. Kate, come on up.
Morning.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
There's a lot to that role. Why don't you spend a couple of seconds talking about what you're accountable for and where your focus is?
Sure. So thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here today and have the chance to share a little bit about this new role and why it matters to everyone here. Ultimately, we are upping our game in terms of our focus on the overall experience that you have with all of Vertex, whether that is with our products and solutions, with our service and support teams, our educational offerings, virtually every touch point that you have with us. And I now, in this new role, am accountable for the experience that you have with Vertex, and I'm helping to bring your voice in to drive our decision-making and priorities. So overall, enhanced customer success is my primary focus.
So if we're going to up our game in bringing the customer's voice in and improving customer experience, what are we doing with engagement? I think engagement, it starts there. So let's talk a little bit about what you've done so far in engagement.
Sure. So engagement is the key here. And we already have a number of initiatives that are underway in order to help us. And the overall goal of all of these initiatives is to inform and educate and support you, and also to hear your feedback. So a few of the things that we have done already is we've increased the number of our regional user group meetings to 7 different areas this year. And I'd really like to thank the hosts that have opened up their offices and allowed us to bring Vertex closer to you and to the regional markets. Another example is this conference. We have over 900 attendees at the conference this year, which is our largest ever. Thank you for that. We've expanded the number of special interest groups that we have. We have interacted with thousands of people at more technology and partner events than ever this year. And we've initiated a webcast series just for our customers where we cover topics like legislative updates and Wayfair to O-Series 9.0 launch sessions and introductory cloud sessions. Through this mechanism, we have engaged with over 6,000 customers this year alone, and this is just a start.
It's a great start, Kate. Congratulations getting us moving in this direction, but I gotta tell you, as a CEO, I'm all about tangible results, Kate. I'm not about just listening. If their voice and they're going to invest their time with us,
yes.
What changes have been brought about as a result of what they've talked to us and told us?
Sure. I know about your focus with tangible outcomes, which is fantastic.
Shameless. Shameless.
Right. So I have 4 examples of some things that we have already put in place based upon the feedback we've been able to gather in the last year or so. First, I'd like to announce the launch of our online educational portal. Basically, it's a new digital tool that is called My Learning, which we heard about the need to educate your teams with refreshers, with bringing new people on, with having remote workers, and also with having multiple generations in the workforce. We needed to address different learning styles. So we have a new online education portal called My Learning, which you can see here this week at Exchange. Also, the features and functionality in 9.0, like the latitude and longitude capabilities that Chris Jones just talked about, all came from direct feedback from our customers. We also have heard about the desire for transparency and visibility around our tax research content. And so we have roadmaps that we are putting forward to allow you to see additional content to come. For example, new sales tax rates and rules for the oil and gas industry, for example. And then the 4th example I'd like to highlight is with the retirement of Adobe Flash, we've heard a lot of customers talking about their desire to plan for their migration to O-Series 9.0. So we have designed a number of robust migration programs to help you with this and to help with the execution. So just a few tangible examples, but based upon the engagement and feedback that we have heard from you, and working
It's great to know their investment's paying off. Their investment of their time is producing real results, so thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. So I have the honor of announcing our final 2 Innovation Award winners, who are Patagonia and the Lego Group. They each created a positive omnichannel experience for their customers in their own unique ways. So let's see how they were able to deliver on this experience.
Patagonia. Patagonia consolidated their multiple sales channels into one ERP system and now uses Vertex as its tax calculation engine. Customers can buy in one channel and return in another for a seamless omni-channel experience. This increased functionality significantly improved tax calculations on sales and returns and made the entire purchasing process simple for the customer. This functionality also improved sales tax compliance and reporting, making it easier for sales associates to complete transactions. Patagonia pioneered and customized this configuration by working closely with consultants and Vertex, benefiting future Microsoft Dynamics 365 Vertex integrations. The LEGO Group. To enhance and scale their omni-channel retail business, the LEGO Group used a Vertex hybrid option by combining its on-premise and cloud solutions to scale its business, resulting in significant in-store and online sales growth while increasing efficiency. Customers have a seamless experience regardless of where and how purchases are made, even during peak times such as Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Congratulations to Patagonia and the LEGO Group. All right, but one more thing here. This is where you all come in. We need our People's Choice winner. Every year we have a lot of fun identifying who the People's Choice winner is. If you go out to the Exchange Extra app, you can vote for your winner, and we'll announce that on Tuesday night. Kate, how about we invite up on stage all of our winners and celebrate their accomplishments. First up, Coke One. Please come join me. Congratulations. 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 Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Gray Bar, please come up. Congratulations. Congratulations. Nice job. LEGO Group, please come join us. Congratulations, Heather. Nicely done. MetLife. Karen, congratulations. Tony, congratulations. Patagonia, please come up. Shelley, congratulations. Dee Dee, congratulations. And Siemens, please come up on stage. Congratulations. They can solve the world's tax problems. They can innovate. They're nervous as heck coming up these staircases that they're going to fall. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so we've talked a little bit about what we've delivered. We've talked a little bit about where we're going. But let's look into the future. Let's go out a little bit into 2020 and beyond. Because one of the things you have told us over the years that you deeply value from us is our ability to look around corners. Our ability to connect trends that are happening in technology and tax and anticipate what kind of solutions you're going to need, what kind of content you're going to need, what kind of value you need us to deliver in the future. So we've invested heavily in a new capability called the Vertex Innovation Labs. I'm going to invite David Deputy up on stage now, join me and share a little bit about what we're doing to help drive innovation through your help. David Deputy, come on up. Good morning. Welcome.
Good to be here.
So, Innovation Labs can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Let's clarify a little bit about what we mean by Innovation Labs and what's different about it from everything else we do.
Absolutely. So what we do is we work with you to identify and explore new ideas, testing for value, and where appropriate, building solutions. So we're the explorers in the group. We're staying ahead of the regulations by working at the policy level with the OECD and others. We're staying ahead of technology, working with academics, working with startups, working with the mega tech providers. And most of all, we're staying ahead of your needs. So bringing us the thorny problems, looking at the problems from your perspective to understand where we can build fast value for you. So think of us as your outsourced R&D function for tax.
Okay, so it's different than the portal of sources that you can give information to Kate or Krista that they were talking about how we're enhancing offerings. Mm-hmm. This is something different. What's operational right now around our innovation labs?
Great question. Well, we were just created earlier this year, but we're moving really fast. We've already worked with over 50 of you, exploring, building, looking at new solutions, a wide range of different ideas. Together, we're getting fast return from that. So we're looking at both feasibility and value at the same time. And the low value ideas that we look at are those that are not feasible. We move on really quickly with our methodologies, saving time for you and for us.
So let's come up with a tangible example. I know we did some things just yesterday with an innovation workshop. Maybe that's a good place to start, but I know you're doing a lot more. So maybe start there and talk a little bit about what we're doing.
So we've got about a half dozen projects active at any given time. We'll be scaling that. But to get to that workshop yesterday, so that was all around machine learning and artificial intelligence. So let me describe a little bit about what we're doing in that area. But it's not about the technology. It's about the business problem. So let me start with the business problem. So when we think about the taxability of items, there's a manual process where each item has to be assigned taxability today. We've heard from you that that's a big problem, that there's thousands of new items coming in. You've got hundreds of thousands. Some of you have millions of SKUs that you're managing. And you're doing acquisitions with whole new product lines coming in. So it's a manual and knowledge-intensive process, but it's not one that's optimized right now. So what we did was we looked at how can we automate that? How can we make it automatic so that these new products could be affected for taxability automatically? And we looked at machine learning, which is a good fit for that problem. So what we've done is we've used machine learning to identify patterns from past work. It provides a recommendation on how to classify each new item. And then it also provides a measure of confidence with that recommendation.
And in order of magnitude in terms of the amount of improvement in execution that would come from that?
Well, from what we hear from our clients, from you, it's about 1,000 items per day that a human can do. We're able to do that in a couple of seconds in this tool.
Couple seconds?
A couple of seconds.
Okay.
But it's not about man versus machine, so don't think that's what this is about. So what we're hearing is the way that machines and humans can work together. In this example, since it has a confidence interval, when it doesn't meet the threshold that you've set for accepting it right into your system, you run it by your human experts. The human experts make the final decision, and then that decision is reintegrated back into the tool next time, so it gets stronger with use.
So patterns, you mentioned patterns, which immediately, being a techie that I am, I think of data. Sure. Being a data hound, I wonder, a lot of the folks in the audience are responsible for data security. That's a very sensitive issue in today's world. How do we deal with data protection and data privacy?
That's great. Yeah, data security is job number one nowadays. There's a couple different things we're doing. First, in the process. So what we're doing is we're coming to your site. We're bringing our tools, and we're making sure your data stays on your premise during the experimentation stage. So we're not taking anything away. What we really want is to work with you to understand whether it's valuable. There's also the technology itself. So in this case, the technology takes the data that you load into it, and it breaks it into pieces. And then it takes those pieces and converts them into a mathematical formula that doesn't bear any resemblance to the data. It's called a model. And these models you can safely deploy, even share these models without worrying about data security because the data is not in them.
Okay, so it's a sensitive topic. Just spend a minute on this because humans and machines, there's a lot of sensitivity out there. If you were to imagine going forward, though, how customers could benefit from that going forward, leveraging this, what would you imagine could be if you take it beyond where it is today?
Well, it's uniquely human to want to get to know each other, to want to share, to want to work together. And look around, look to your left, look to your right. Look at the knowledge, the experience in the audience. There's thousands, probably tens of thousands of hours of experience in the audience today. Now, what if we were able to tap into that? What if we could actually leverage that cumulative knowledge and do so in a way that was absolutely safe from a data privacy perspective? Well, that's now possible, we think. And as your tax R&D function, it's our job to figure out how to bring that to you so that you can realize value.
That's great, David. Thanks so much. I kind of would think of that as like connected intelligence.
Yeah, it's a good buzzword. I'll use it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks so much this morning. That's a small example of what we're trying to do in terms of thinking into the future. It'll only work if we work as a community, though. So we're investing in making ourselves available to you. We really hope we can get your best and brightest ideas along the way. Hopefully you got a little taste of the energy that we're bringing into Vertex Customer Conference. I can assure you the 100+ Vertex employees that you're going to meet this week all have the same passion and the same desire to share that kind of energy. Because each of us shares a common purpose at Vertex, and it really drives us. It's how do we build trust at work, in our personal relationships, and actually through the communities that we deliver value to, because those communities are where we live and where we do work. The community side of things has really changed for us in the last year because we invested with you to give back registration fees. So this year we're going to invite you to our Corporate Resource Center to contribute to where we want to give away the money that we're donating from your registration fees to the charities that Vertex supports. Because we get a lot of inspiration from that, not just from the community perspective, but also where we live and work. The truth is, inspirational stories exists in every community. And in our places of work, I'm really pleased to bring you one right now that I think will have a meaningful impact on you this morning. So bear with me for a second. We're going to bring out a very exciting speaker who has a wonderful story to tell you. Now, this young woman has overcome incredible odds in her lifetime. She had a near-death experience that could have changed a lot of who she is and what she's all about, and in fact, it inspired her. Her passion for snowboarding as she was growing up, she imagined traveling the world, but she ran into some obstacles that perhaps would have stopped a lot of others. She actually has used that to move to the upper echelons of athletics. You'll learn about how she was on the dance floor in Hollywood and well beyond. She's quite accomplished. She's a New York Times bestseller. She toured with Oprah Winfrey. You may recall and recognize her face. She was on a Super Bowl commercial narrated by Muhammad Ali, and I'm really excited to share that as of March, she became America's most decorated Paralympic snowboarder. So congratulations to Amy. Please, never a dull moment. Amy Purdy, please join me on stage.
Thanks so much.
Welcome.
Okay, there you go.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Hi, you guys. How are you? Good. So I'm so excited to be here. I get the opportunity to speak all over the world, and this is the first time that I'm speaking here in Colorado, where I live. I live about 2 hours from here. I live up in the ski resort area. And it's kind of ironic because I was so excited to be here because I could drive here, but just Murphy's Law, I ended up having to go out of town and flew here anyways, and almost didn't make it because of the snow outside, which, by the way, how many of you guys are from Colorado? So not that many. This is not our usual. Like, it's usually, how many of you guys brought a winter coat? I didn't. This is not our usual to have this much snow on the ground. So yesterday, I actually flew in from Las Vegas. I was there because my family threw this big Halloween party, and so you'll probably see some like leftover sparkles and feathers that are in my hair, especially because my face is going to be so big. It's like, this is the biggest I've ever seen my head. This is the biggest screen I've ever seen. So since I was dressed up like this yesterday anyways, I decided it would only be fair to share with you guys what I'm dressing up as for Halloween. So do you guys want to see it? Okay. So here we go. Let's see if this works. I dressed up as a flamingo because what else stands on one leg? You know, I had to get a little bit creative here. This is not my normal. Normally, I would come out here on stage in a dress and my bionic legs and a pair of 3-inch heels. In fact, here's a photo from a speech that I gave about 7 months ago. I was standing on stage and I felt a cramp in my left calf. And I didn't think too much of it because after having prosthetic legs for 20 years, you get used to a level of aches and pains. But this time was a little bit different. About 2 days after feeling that cramp, I was in the emergency room here in Denver. I was diagnosed with a blood clot from my hip down every artery of my left leg. And we have no idea really how I got it, except that we think that my prosthetic and the pressure from my prosthetic is what caused it. So, for the second time in my life, my world has flipped upside down. And for the second time in my life, it makes me want to cry, but I'm fighting to walk again. The first time was when I was 19 years old, and I'll share some of that with you guys today. But I know, sorry, this is the first time that I'm actually really talking about it, so I'm a little bit teary-eyed, especially in front of 800 people. But I know that you guys you all work within the tax world, and I don't. And so I'm not going to try to touch on any of that today. But one thing, especially after just watching what you guys were talking about, I have no clue. I have an idea. I do know what you guys do. I know the basics, but I definitely don't know the details of what you do. So I'm not even going to go there, and I'm sure you'll get enough of that with this conference anyways. But what I do know a little bit about is transforming our challenges into opportunities. And with how quickly the world is changing these days and how quickly business is changing, I'm sure that's something that you all can relate to as well. So I have a question for all of you, and you don't have to have an answer. This is just something to think about. If your life was a book and you were the author of that book, how would you want your story to go? So I ask you that question because that's the question that changed my life forever. I grew up in the hot Las Vegas desert, and all I wanted was to be free. I would daydream about traveling the world, living in a place where it snowed. Be careful what you ask for, because I live here in the snow. And I would picture all these stories that I would go on to tell. At the age of 19, I actually moved to a place where it snowed. I moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I became a massage therapist, because my thought was all I needed were my hands and my massage table by my side, and I could go anywhere. For the first time ever, I felt free, independent, and completely in control of my life. That is, until my life took a detour. The day began just like any other day. I woke up feeling great as usual. When I went to work, I had maybe 3 to 5 back-to-back massages, and that was a typical day for me. Although normally I'd have enough energy to work a full day and then go to the gym afterwards. But this day was different. After about my 3rd massage, I was exhausted, and I actually kind of blamed it on the poor guy who I was massaging because, you know, sometimes people can give you energy, sometimes people can like suck the life out of you. I thought, geez, what is this guy doing? What is happening here? I'm exhausted. And so over the next hour or so, I started to realize that my energy level continued to fade. So thinking I had the flu, I decided to go home from work early. That night I went home, I had a temperature of 101. That's typical flu-like symptoms, nothing too bad. The next morning, my temperature actually broke. So seeing that I felt better, my family decided to follow through with their travel plans and go out of town. And I told them, don't worry about me. I probably have a 24-hour flu or something. I'll meet up with you guys later. But that afternoon, instead of feeling better, I started to feel worse. And at one point, my mom called to check on me. And I said, God, Mom, I feel like I'm dying. But I have to say that I've always been known for being the dramatic one of the family. And like every time I had the flu, I felt like I was dying. And my mom said, well, you're probably a little dehydrated. Get to the hospital if you need to. And when I got off the phone with her, I closed my eyes and I fell asleep. And not long after closing my eyes, I felt this strong urge to wake up. But when I tried to open my eyes, I couldn't. Over and over, I would force myself awake. And then finally, I fell into the deepest sleep I've ever felt. And then suddenly, I heard a voice say, Amy, get up and look in the mirror. And this voice was so startling that I immediately opened my eyes. I looked around. I didn't see anybody there. But as I was sitting up, I started to realize that something was really, really wrong. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was so shaky. I was so weak. It probably took a good 3 to 5 minutes to get into a seated position. And then I put my feet on the floor and I stood up. And I realized that I couldn't feel my feet. When I glanced to the floor, I saw that my feet were purple. When I glanced at my hands, I saw that my hands were purple. When I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I saw that my nose, my chin, and my cheeks were purple as well. I was dying, and I knew it. Right then, my cousin came in to come check on me. My mom had called her, and she walked in and she took one look at me and she cried, oh my God, Amy, it looks like you're dead. And I said, I'm dying. I'm dying. I know I am. I have to get to the hospital right now. Well, the hospital was only 15 minutes away, and I don't know why we didn't think about calling 911. but every minute of that car ride felt like an hour. I had to talk myself through every breath I took. I'd say, Amy, just breathe. Just breathe. And by the time I got to the hospital, my lungs had collapsed, my veins had collapsed. I was immediately put on life support, and I was given less than a 2% chance of living. And it wasn't until 5 days later, as the doctors debated outside my hospital room who was going to tell my parents that it was time to pull the plug, that I was diagnosed not with the flu like we originally thought, but with something called meningococcal meningitis. We have no idea how I got it. All we know is 1 in 4 people are carriers of this bacteria, so it's kind of spread like the flu or the cold. So for all I know, somebody could have sneezed on me in the elevator at work, and maybe that's how I got it. But due to this little microscopic bacteria, over the course of 2.5 months, I ended up losing my spleen, I lost my kidney function, I lost the hearing in my left ear, and due to the septic shock that my body went into, I ended up losing both of my legs below the knees. My life changed like that. I went from being a normal 19-year-old who could throw on a dress and a pair of flip-flops and run out the door without a care in the world, to now relying on machines, mechanics, and medical innovation in order to live and in order to even survive. I remember when my friends and my family wheeled me out of the hospital. I had so many surgeries at that time that I felt like I was just pieced back together like a patchwork doll. And I thought that the worst was over. That is, until I saw my new legs for the very first time. They were these bulky blocks of metal with pipes bolted together for the ankles. They were hideous. Like, you see these high-tech feet on TV, and these were not them. I have no idea who designed these. They look like they were straight out of the Home Depot plumbing department. Not high-tech at all, like just pipes bolted together, and with my mom by my side, and tears just streaming down our faces, I strapped on these chunky legs, and I stood up. They were so painful and so confining that all I could think was, how am I going to travel the world in these things? How was I going to live this life full of adventure and full of stories as I always wanted? And how was I going to snowboard again? This day, I went home, I crawled into bed, and this is what my life looked like for the next few months. Me, passed out, just escaping from reality with these beastly legs resting by my side. I was absolutely physically and emotionally broken. The thought of living the rest of my life with these hunks of hardware as my legs was terrifying. But little did I know at that time that my biggest loss, my legs, would eventually become my biggest asset. But at this time, I remember thinking, in order to move forward with my life, I had to somehow learn how to let go of the old Amy and somehow learn how to embrace the new Amy. And that is when it dawned on me that the old Amy was maybe, 5'5", but the new Amy, she could be 5'10". I could be as tall as I wanted, or I could be as short as I wanted, depending on who I was dating at that time. And and my height changed a lot over the years, just as I was trying to figure it out. So this is a photo of my husband and I, and I'll tell you a secret. He's here with me, but he's not in the room, so I can share this. He doesn't like it when I'm taller than him. I don't know why. No, it completely changes the dynamics of our relationship. It's crazy. So like, when I make myself taller, he knows that it is time to get stuff done. Like, I mean business when I'm taller. But when I'm shorter, it's like, that's when I want to be taken care of. He thinks I'm all cute. He'll put his arms around me. It completely changes. I can totally like manipulate our relationship by the height of my legs. And so now when I go home, I make myself shorter. And then when I leave, I make myself taller. So now we get the best of both worlds. But I started to realize at this time, kind of early on, that there were benefits to having these bionic body parts. And one of the benefits was that if I snowboarded again, my feet weren't going to get cold. I can tighten my bindings down as tight as I wanted, and my toes wouldn't go numb. And I think the best benefit of all is that I can make my feet the size of any shoe that I want. So I decided to make my feet the size of all the shoes that are on the sales rack. And so now, I mean, it doesn't matter what size of shoe it is. If I want it, I can wear it, because I don't have to buy the shoe to fit the foot. I can actually buy the foot to fit the shoe, which is great. Or if nothing else, I could chop my toes off and cram my foot into, into a shoe just to make it work. So this just adds to like my shoe obsession, which I've got just a storage unit full of shoes because I have to have them. Shoes, feet, legs, it just makes being a woman that much more complicated. But so I started to realize at this time that, you know, even on my darkest days, there was always some sort of a silver lining. And just as I started to get used to this new body and this new life, I found out that I had yet another mountain to climb when I found out that my kidneys had failed to heal on their own. And my reaction, I lost it. I screamed words that I could never repeat up here on stage. I pleaded with God, Buddha, Mother Nature, Mr. Universe, whoever is out there and holds the power to please, please make my kidneys come back. Because I was not going to have a kidney transplant. I just got over the fact that I lost both of my legs. And now to have a kidney transplant seems so overwhelming to me. I thought, this is the kind of stuff that happens to people on Oprah. This is not what's happening in my life. This is not my life. And we were doing everything we could to get me healthy again, so I would never contract something like meningitis again. So I was working out again, I was taking vitamins every day. My mom would even drive an hour and a half each direction each week to buy this magical aloe juice that was supposed to keep my immune system healthy. Yet with a kidney transplant, I would have to take immune suppressive medication for the rest of my life. So to say it was a catch-22 was an understatement. However, it was times like these, times that I had absolutely zero control over, that first prompted me to ask myself that really important question. If my life was a book, and I was the author of that book, how would I want my story to go? And this question allowed me to daydream again, just as I did as a little girl. And first of all, it allowed me to think of what I didn't want. What I didn't want is I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want people to know me as, oh, the girl who's got prosthetic legs or the girl who's disabled. That's what I didn't want. And so it allowed me to start to think of, well, what is it that I do want for my life? And I saw myself walking gracefully. And I saw myself somehow helping other people through this journey. And I saw myself snowboarding again. And I didn't just see myself carving down this mountain of powder. I visualized it so strongly that I could actually feel it. I could feel the wind against my face and the beat of my racing heart as if it was happening in that very moment. And that passion and that fire that I felt inside, that is when a new chapter of my life began. 4 months later, 4 months after I lost my legs, I was back up on a snowboard. Although things didn't go quite as expected, my knees and my ankles wouldn't bend. I remember kind of strapping in and standing up on my board and thinking, okay, that part's okay. And then I kind of rode over to my heel edge and I thought, okay, that's fine, I can do that. And then I went to ride over to my toe edge and I shot down the mountain, I hit this bump, I fell, my goggles went one way, my gloves went the other way, and my legs, still attached to my snowboard, went flying down the mountain. Meanwhile, I was still sitting on top of the mountain, completely embarrassed. I heard a lady scream from the chairlift, which I'm sure she racked up years of therapy bills after that, because I would imagine the last thing you want to see when you're learning to ski or snowboard is somebody break into pieces and have body parts everywhere. Like, I imagine the conversation when she went home and said, I'm not doing that again. I saw someone whose legs came off. And I wasn't expecting that either. I was totally shocked. So my friend had to hike down the mountain, pick up my legs that were still attached to my snowboard, hike my snowboard and my legs back up to me. And that was the beginning of my Olympic career, which is so crazy to think. I'm glad that I didn't give up at that time because I wanted to. I remember thinking, this is probably why you don't see double leg amputee snowboarders every day. And I was so discouraged, and I almost walked away, but then I thought, well, okay, if I can figure out how to keep these detachable body parts attached to my body, if I can figure out a way to get my ankles to move in the way that I need them to, then maybe I can do this again. And that's when I learned that the borders and the obstacles in our lives can only do two things. One, stop us dead in our tracks, or two, force us to get creative. So this day I went home, I ended up doing a year of research trying to figure out what kind of legs were out there that I could snowboard in, and I didn't find anything. I called every adaptive ski school across the country, and they would all say, you should take your legs off and sit in a monoski. And I thought, well, I'm not a skier, I'm a snowboarder, and I want to use my legs. I want to figure out a way to do this, and maybe it just hasn't been done yet. And so I ended up making a pair of feet myself. My leg maker and I, we put a bunch of kind of random parts together. We kind of Frankensteined these feet, and we made a pair of feet that I could snowboard in. So as you can see, there's rubber, there's actually wood in there, there's neon pink duct tape, and of course I had to paint my toenails as well. I ended up kind of taking an ankle and turning it backwards and just trying to get the motion that I needed. But these legs, and the best 21st birthday gift I could ever receive, which was a new kidney from my dad, allowed me to snowboard again, and allowed me to travel the world, and allowed me to chase my dreams again. I ended up going back to work, and then I went back to school, and then I started pursuing all types of other creative projects. And then my husband and I, we wanted to give back to the community that's given to us so much. So in 2005, we started a nonprofit organization called Adaptive Action Sports, where we get youth, young adults, and wounded veterans, all with permanent physical disabilities, involved in action sports, like snowboarding and skateboarding. We started the organization because at the time that I lost my legs, there were zero resources for somebody like me, somebody who had a physical disability, who wanted to get involved in action sports. But there were tons of resources for someone like me who wanted to get involved in classic sports like running or swimming. And from the very beginning, we had a pretty hefty goal. We wanted to try to get snowboarding into the 2014 Paralympic Games for the very first time, because snowboarding was in the Olympic Games. So why wasn't it in the Paralympic Games? And for those of you who don't know, there's the Olympic Games, and the Paralympic Games are actually the adaptive division of the Olympic Games. Sometimes people will confuse the Paralympics with the Special Olympics, which the Special Olympics is a whole separate organization for cognitive disabilities. But the Paralympics is actually the adaptive division of the Olympic Games. So we have the same sponsors, we ride on the same courses, it just takes place 2 weeks after the Olympics. And so snowboarding was in the Olympics, not yet in the Paralympics, so we started teaming up, my husband and I started teaming up with different companies and organizations to showcase what these adaptive snowboarders could do. We started teaching the athletes through trainings and camps how to be the best athletes they could be. And then we started connecting with other brands and organizations to give those athletes a place to compete at. So this is one of the events that we run. This is the ESPN Winter X Games. How many of you guys have seen the Winter X Games? And that takes place just up here in Aspen, which is not too far from here. And so these athletes, we put together the first adaptive snowboard competition at the ESPN Winter X Games. And we did it for about 5 years in a row. These athletes, all of them here, are either missing a leg below the knee or missing a leg above the knee. And I believe all of these athletes here are also wounded veterans. So we get the opportunity to work with a lot of wounded vets, especially young wounded vets who just come back from war and they're injured and they've got all this adrenaline and all this excitement and they want to just get back into life. And so our organization's been a great resource for them. So through many years of blood, sweat, and tears, and also being turned down many times, we finally found out in 2011 that snowboarding would be a part of the 2014 Paralympic Games for the very first time. And so once the race to get snowboarding into the Games was over, I then began the race to make the first ever Paralympic snowboard team. And so I made it my mission to train around the clock. I was working in our shop, which isn't far from here either. I had tools and mechanics, and I'd be working on my feet every single day because I was the only double leg amputee competitive snowboarder worldwide. You know, unlike Vertex, where you guys have all these resources under one roof, I didn't have that. I had to try to piece everything together myself. I had to try to connect all the dots myself. I couldn't call somebody and say, hey, what kind of feet do you snowboard in? Like nobody else knew. I had to really try to figure this out on my own. And being the only double leg amputee snowboarder, I was competing against girls who had one leg, and them having just one human dynamic foot, they had a huge advantage over me. So I had to work harder than everybody else. And over the course of about 18 months, I ended up gaining about 20 pounds of muscle. I made the US snowboard team, and I headed to Sochi, Russia, where I'm honored to say that I became the first female to ever bring home a bronze medal in Paralympic snowboarding. Thank you. And I just headed back to my second Paralympic Games last year in South Korea, where I'm proud to say I came home with another bronze medal, which I like to call my rose gold. I don't really like to call it a bronze, it's my rose gold. And also I upgraded to a silver medal as well. But what's even more significant than that is that we were able to train with our organization. We were able to train 8 out of the 13 athletes that made the US snowboard team. And that included 2 young wounded veterans that made the team and trained with us. And altogether, the athletes from our organization were able to bring home 6 medals for Team USA and for our country. So, thank you. Thank you. And none of that would have happened if we didn't connect to what matters most. For us, it was connecting to resources, connecting to brands, connecting to people who believed in our dreams and who could help us accomplish our goals. In fact, I want to give a shout out to one of the brands that I connected to early on when I first started my snowboard career. That's Coca-Cola, which Coke's here today, right? I think so, because, yeah. So I partnered with Coca-Cola going into the 2014 Olympic Games. I partnered with them again going into the 2018 Olympic Games. I believe I'm the only Olympian who's ever partnered with Coca-Cola 2 Olympic Games in a row. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without them, without their resources, without the funding that helped to get my training and get my legs set up right, get the gear that I needed, and basically spend 4 years training to be the best athlete of my life. Coca-Cola was a huge part of that. Another brand that I want to give a shout out to, because I think they're here today, is Microsoft here? I think so, somebody from Microsoft. So we actually just connected with Microsoft because the guy in this photo who's holding the snowboard up, his name's Mike Schultz, and he develops the most amazing snowboard foot in his garage. We're all using it. And so I teamed up with him on this foot. We teamed up with Burton Snowboards, and then Burton Snowboards just teamed up with Microsoft to create the software to make this foot. So those are just 2 examples of how, for me, connecting to resources, connecting to what matters most, has really helped to shape my life and shape my career. And another example of connecting to resources is when I was on the TV show Dancing with the Stars. I had to pull out every resource I had. I had to pull out every type of support I had because I had 0 dance experience. unless you want to count the country clog dancing. The country clog dancing that I did as a kid. This is the only dance experience I ever had. And actually, I tried out for my high school cheer squad, and I tried out for my high school dance team, and I failed, and that's when I had legs. So going on to TV, dancing in front of millions of people on 2 prosthetic legs, I had no idea what to expect. And I really had never even seen the show before. In fact, I'd see it just flipping through the channels, and I'd always wonder why you would see these celebrities cry, as if dancing the cha-cha was the hardest thing they've ever done in their lives. Like, how hard could it really be, right? But before I knew it, I was in Sochi, Russia, and I would snowboard for 4 hours each morning, and then I would dance for 4 hours each night with my partner, Derek Huff. And by the way, the other dancers on the show, so the other celebrities, they had about 3 weeks to prepare for the first live show. I had 3 half days, that's it, because I was invited to do the show just a few days before going to Sochi for the Paralympic Games. And I agreed to it, but I knew it would overlap. So Derek had to fly to Russia. We danced for 3 half days. And also, the first Dancing with the Stars show was just 72 hours after my Paralympic snowboard race. So after I won my medal, I literally had to step off the podium, step onto the airplane. I traveled 24 hours. I stepped off the airplane, went straight into the studio, and then suddenly, I was live in front of millions of viewers, 4 judges, and a studio audience dancing the cha-cha-cha. And now I knew why I'd seen so many of these celebrities cry, because it was by far the hardest thing that I've ever put myself through. Going on to the show, I had no idea if anything like this had ever really been done before, if somebody with 2 prosthetic legs had ever danced 7 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 3 months straight without 1 day off. I didn't even know if my legs would move in the way that I need them to. And at one point, I actually remember watching some of the other dancers move so gracefully and just glide across the dance floor. And my heart sank. And I secretly thought to myself, there is no way that I'm going to be able to do this. Yet somehow, each and every week, we managed to find a way. Every Tuesday, we would get our new dance style. We'd get our new dance song. We'd start playing around with different movements. And pretty quickly, we realized that my everyday walking legs just weren't going to work. My feet just weren't going to move or bend in the way that I need them to. So luckily, I had my leg maker on speed dial. And nearly each and every week, he would overnight a new pair of feet for me to try. But there are no feet out there that are made for the cha-cha. There are no feet that are made for the salsa. They're completely different movements and completely different movements than walking. So we had to get really, really creative. So for example, this is one of the dances that Derek and I did. So this is a Latin dance. This is the jive. And you need to be able to like really shake your hips and bend your knees. And that was really hard for me to do with my normal legs. And so I ordered these feet off of the company online. These are basically mannequin feet. These are not high tech at all. These feet are literally made of wood and foam, and that's it. And I liked that they had this really pretty arch. So I thought, well, maybe I could wear these in like a really tall, pretty Latin shoe. But as soon as I walked in my shoe, the toes folded over, and I realized I couldn't walk in them at all. And so I got frustrated. I took the shoes off, I threw them across the room, and I was walking back to my chair, and I realized that I could balance on the balls of my feet. And when I balanced on the balls of my feet, my knees would bend. And when my knees would bend, my hips would bend. And so I ended up doing the majority of our dances on that show for 3 months, dancing with no shoes on, just on the very balls of my feet. And then there were other dances like this one. This is the Argentine tango. And the Argentine tango, you have to be able to point your toes, and that is impossible for me. And in fact, that was one of my biggest fears going on the show, is I know as a dancer, you need to be able to point your toes. And if everybody else is pointing their toes, then I want to be able to point my toes as well. And so this dance came around where your toes have to be pointed the whole time. And I remember seeing these feet in a magazine. These are actually swimming feet. So if you can imagine, when you're swimming, your toes are pointed behind you. And so I saw these in a magazine, and I thought, okay, maybe I can balance on the very tips of the toes, like ballerina feet. And so I called the company, and I said, hi, my name's Amy Purdy. I'm on the TV show Dancing with the Stars, and I was hoping that I could order these swimming feet so I could dance in them. And they said, oh, no, 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 there's no way. These feet are, they're made for swimming. They're not even made for walking. Definitely not made for dancing. And so then I called back the next day and I said, hi, my name's Amy Purdy from Dancing with the Stars. I was hoping I could buy these feet to swim in. And they ended up overnighting them to me. And then I appeared on TV the next week, and I'm sure they saw. But I was able to balance. I was able to actually balance on the very tips of these toes, and I was able to point my toes. And then there was another dance that we were really concerned about, because you have to be able to really glide across the dance floor. It was the quick step. You have to really be able to travel far and be really graceful. And that's just hard to do in my normal walking legs. And so I remember we had no idea. We thought we were going to get kicked off for sure. We were like, this is it. This is our last week. There's nothing we could do about this. And then my husband was like, well, what about your running blades that are just collecting dust in the closet? So he overnighted those to us. And so I have a video to show you guys of how that dance went.
Dancing the quick step. Amy Purdy and her partner Derek Huff.
Thank you. So basically, each and every week, we had a problem to solve. But by being determined to solve that problem, I think we grew more creatively and became more resilient than either of us ever could have imagined. And in the end, all of our hard work paid off when we came in second place, just behind an Olympic gold medalist gymnast. Olympic gold medalist ice dancer. So she was the best dancer on ice. And so dancing on a hardwood floor couldn't have been that hard, but you know. But anyways, looking at that video, you know, there was a time that I thought my life was over. And I'm kind of talking to you guys at the same time I'm talking to myself when I say this, that, you know, this is why we can't give up on ourselves, because you have no idea what the world has in store for you. After I did Dancing with the Stars, I got the opportunity to do a speaking tour across the country with my idol, Oprah Winfrey. And it just so happens that while I was on this speaking tour, I was writing my book. And so you better believe that I pulled out that Oprah Book Club card. I knocked on her dressing room door, I handed her my book, and she endorsed it right then and there. And because of that endorsement, it went on to be a New York Times bestseller and written in 10 different languages across the world. And I think the most amazing part of that is that now I get letters from people from all different languages from all across the world sharing their stories with me. And so in this case, it's not really about connecting with what matters most, it's connecting with who matters most. And if you can connect with Oprah, that's a good way to go. But it just makes me think that it's just kind of a reminder that the greatest tool that we have is the power to connect. I think that's really what matters most, and I think that's why we are all here today, and you're able to do that under one roof today. So part of the reason why I wanted to write this book was because when I was young, if somebody had told me that at the age of 19 that I was going to lose my legs, that I was going to lose my kidneys, that I was going to lose my health and the life that I knew, I would have said, because I believed it at that time, that there was absolutely no way that I would be able to do that. You know, we may think that life would be easier without all of the change and without all of the challenge that comes our way, but I've learned it's that change and it's that challenge that forces us to figure out what we're really made of. It makes us dig deep. It makes us find our fire, and it makes us get creative, because that's the only way to reach beyond the reality of this current moment, is by accepting what is, but most importantly, daydreaming of what could be. When I look back on my life, I think every challenge, every obstacle, every hardship, everything I've ever gone through has led me to where I'm at today. You know, there's no way to expedite the process. There's no way to have the good without the bad. It takes every step along the way to be everything that we were put here on this earth to be. It's just about changing our challenges into motivators and our obstacles into opportunities to learn and to grow. When I lost my legs, I had no idea what to expect. But if you asked me today if I'd ever want to change my situation, I would tell you guys no. Because my legs haven't disabled me. If anything, they enabled me. They forced me to rely on my imagination and to completely believe in the possibilities. And that's why I believe that our imaginations are huge tools for getting through all the obstacles in our lives, because in our minds, we can do anything. And we can be anything. It's believing in those dreams and facing our fears head on that allows us to live our lives beyond our limits. So a thought that I'd like to leave with you guys today is that maybe instead of looking at all of our challenges and all of our obstacles that we all face as something that's negative or bad, maybe we can begin to look at them as blessings, as these magnificent gifts that can be used to ignite our imaginations and take us further than we ever knew we could go. Because it's not about overcoming our obstacles. It's not about overcoming them. It's not about knocking down the borders in our lives. It's really about using them. It's about pushing off of them. It's about seeing what amazing places they might take us. So I'd like to end today with the question that I started with. If your life was a book and you were the author of that book, how would you want your story to go? Thank you guys so much.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Good. Thank you.
What an inspiration to all of us, Amy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Folks, we hope you have a great customer conference. If we're not inspired now to make a difference in life, we'll never be. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Everything we talked about today pales in comparison to that amazing life story. Folks, everything we talked about today, though, that was exciting about Vertex is available to you in the Resource Center, is available to you in the sessions that we're going to have. I hope you all enjoy Denver. Hope you love this conference. Continue to help us get better, and we'll continue to help you get better. Thank you so much.